Thank you for joining our look at surviving the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. Before we begin, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Your support means the world to us. Now sit back and relax as we take a look at life in Pompeii. The morning begins with light spilling over the tiled rooftops, warming the pale stone of the streets and catching on the edges of shop awnings that flutter lazily in the bay breeze. It is late August, high summer in Campania, and the air is already warm enough to soften the pitch between the paving stones. The cicadas hum in the gardens beyond the walls, and the scent of bread from the city's many bakeries threads through the narrow streets. Your day begins as it always does, not with any grand event, but with the steady, ordinary rhythm of a Roman provincial town at work. From your small, whitewashed home, you step into the light, brushing past the curtain that serves as your door. The street is just wide enough for a cart, though already clogged with the morning's traffic. The local baker is loading fresh loaves onto a wooden board, each one crusty and brown from the domed ovens, while a neighbor carries an amphora balanced on her hip, the clay dark with condensation from the cool water drawn at dawn. Across the way, a fruit seller calls out the ripeness of his figs and the sweetness of his dates, his voice cutting over the groan of wagon wheels and the snort of donkeys. Somewhere nearby, a smith hammers at a strip of glowing metal, the clanging echoing between walls plastered in fading frescoes. Pompeii at this time is a city of around 12,000 souls, bustling but compact, enclosed by stout walls and crisscrossed by streets of black volcanic basalt. It is Roman in governance and architecture, but its soul still carries older Samnite roots, layered with the Greek influence that drifted across the bay centuries before. For a villager like you, the city is both protection and opportunity. You might own a small workshop or work in one of the many trades that keep the town running: potter, fuller, fishmonger, or simply a hired hand, carrying goods from the forum to the harbor. Life is not wealthy, but it is steady, bound by the tides of work, the turning of the seasons, and the rhythm of the festivals. The forum is the center of that rhythm. By mid-morning, you will find it thick with merchants and petitioners, the smell of oil and wine heavy in the air. Men in togas, crisp and carefully folded, stroll between the colonnades to exchange news and coin, while women haggle over the price of olive oil, arguing in sharp, clipped Latin. The chatter here is always a mix of voices, the rustic drawl of the Campanian countryside, the sharper accents of traders from Naples, even the rougher Greek of sailors from across the Aegean. The market stalls are laden with baskets of olives, mounds of grain, fresh-caught fish glittering on beds of damp rushes, flies clustered thickly, swatted away with lazy flicks of woven fans. Above the forum rises the Temple of Jupiter, its columns bright in the sun, standing as the city's spiritual heart. You pass it often without much thought, though today you pause briefly as a small procession makes its way up the temple steps. A priest in a fringed toga raises a bronze dish of incense, the smoke curling upward in the still morning air. You bow your head, not out of deep piety perhaps, but out of habit. The gods are part of life here as naturally as the sea and the mountain. Jupiter, Venus, Apollo, each has their place, and each must be honored. Yet as you go about your morning, you notice small things you cannot quite name. The air feels heavy, as though a storm is waiting somewhere just out of sight. The sea in the distance glimmers, but its surface is strangely still. A few merchants mutter about a faint tremor felt during the night, but no one seems overly concerned. Pompeii has seen its share of quakes. The great one 17 years ago cracked walls, toppled statues, and brought down roofs, but the city rebuilt. Earthquakes are part of life here. The mountain to the north, broad and green, is quiet as it has been for as long as anyone remembers. Children run in the streets, chasing one another between the stepping stones that bridge the gutters, utterly unbothered. You carry on, weaving through the streets as the day warms. At the baths, steam rises gently from the caldarium, and the sound of conversation carries out into the street. Men recline on benches, rubbing scented oil into their skin, while attendants scrape away the sweat and dust of the morning's work. The baths are as much a social place as a place to clean yourself, and news flows here as freely as the water. A ship from Alexandria has arrived in the harbor, bringing grain and spices. The price of garum, the strong, salty fish sauce beloved in every kitchen, has risen. There is talk of gladiators scheduled to fight in the amphitheater next week, a welcome distraction from the long, hot days. Past the baths, the amphitheater itself sits quiet, its stone tiers waiting for the roar of the crowd. You can picture it full, the sweat, the shouting, the clash of metal on metal as fighters struggle in the sand. For now, though, it is just another part of the city, an oval of stone in the morning sun, its arches casting long shadows. A couple of boys chase each other along its outer wall, their shouts bouncing in the hot air. The streets are lined with small shops, too many selling wine or hot food, their counters inlaid with jars of stew or olives. Workshops where clay amphorae stand in rows, drying in the heat, dye works with vats of deep red and purple, the colors clinging to the air. In the fuller's workshops, cloth is cleaned in vats of ammonia, the acrid smell enough to turn your stomach. No one here wastes time on delicacy. Every trade has its smell, its sound, its own corner of the city. By late morning, the heat presses down, and the streets grow quieter. Those who can retreat indoors, shutters closed against the glare. You find yourself in the shade of a colonnade, sipping watered wine from a clay cup, while a neighbor talks idly about the coming grape harvest. The vines on the slopes beyond the city are heavy this year, promising a good yield. Wine is not just drink here, it is commerce and the lifeblood of the villas that stud the countryside. From where you sit, you can see the outline of Vesuvius over the rooftops. Its twin peaks rise green and calm, the upper slopes softened by haze. To you, it is simply the northern boundary of your world, a landmark by which you judge distance and direction. No one calls it a volcano. The word has yet to enter your language. It is just a mountain, older than the city, older than memory, and as unthreatening as the hills beyond. A slave passes by carrying a heavy basket of bread, the loaves stacked high and steaming from the oven. Behind him, a man leads a pair of donkeys laden with amphorae of wine. The air smells of baking, of sun-warmed stone, of the faint salt of the sea carried on a stray breeze. You take it in without thinking, the familiar tapestry of your city, each thread woven over years of repetition. The idea that it could all be gone in a matter of hours would seem ridiculous if anyone had suggested it. The sun climbs higher, burning the streets white. A vendor under a striped awning fans himself with a scrap of papyrus, waiting for customers. Somewhere nearby, a child cries, the sharp, brief wail of a scraped knee, and is hushed by a mother's voice. In the shade of a doorway, an old man carves a piece of wood, his knife flashing in the light. Two dogs lie sprawled on the warm stones, their sides rising and falling in sleep. The city hums, but without hurry. It is a place at the height of its life, unaware that this day will be remembered not for its ordinary rhythm, but for its violent, final rupture. For now, you think only of the tasks ahead, a delivery to make, a debt to settle, a visit to a cousin across town. The future, in its ordinariness, feels certain. You pass the Temple of Isis, its walls still fresh from repairs after the last earthquake. The scent of incense drifts out from within, mingling with the sharper smell of the nearby tanneries. Life here is a blend of refinement and grit, marble and sweat. Rich villas line some streets, their gates opening onto shaded courtyards and cool fountains, while just around the corner, cramped apartments rise above noisy workshops. Pompeii is not a city of separation. The rich and poor share its streets, its walls, and soon its fate. A few clouds drift above the bay, their shadows moving slowly over the water. You barely notice. Your world is here, in the worn stones beneath your feet, the voices of your neighbors, the calls of traders and craftsmen. The mountain is quiet, the sea is calm, and the day stretches ahead in its familiar shape. You could not know, no one could, that these sights and sounds will be sealed in ash before the next sunrise. That the bread cooling in the bakeries will still be there 2,000 years from now, blackened but intact. That the dogs sleeping in the street will leave hollows in the ash where their bodies once were. That your own footprints in the dust will be the last you leave. For now, it is simply morning in Pompeii, and it is beautiful. It begins without warning, at least not the kind you recognize. The air has been heavy all morning, warm enough to dampen your tunic at the back and make every breath feel slow. You are in the middle of a simple task, perhaps carrying goods from the market or sorting a delivery, when a deep, rolling sound reaches you, too long for thunder, too far away to be a cart, too alive to be anything you have heard before. You look up instinctively along with everyone else in the street. Conversations falter. Somewhere, a dog begins barking. The sound swells in your chest before it reaches your ears fully, a vibration that belongs to the earth itself. Beyond the rooftops, to the north, the mountain has changed. Where the familiar green slope should be, there is a wound in the sky. A column of smoke and ash pours upward, impossibly tall, churning and twisting as it climbs. The base of it is a violent, seething black, but it shifts to a blinding white as it rises, catching the sunlight in strange ways. It is not like a cloud. Clouds drift and swell. This thing grows with purpose, pushing upward like a pillar of the gods, splitting the sky in two. For a few long moments, no one moves. You are not the only one caught between awe and a tight, creeping dread. Some point, some cross themselves in silent prayers, others call out to companions inside shops and homes. From somewhere near the forum, a vendor laughs nervously, calling it a sign from Jupiter, perhaps an omen for a good harvest. His voice is too loud, too sharp. It does not convince anyone. The sound changes. The deep rolling groan becomes a series of cracks and booms, like 100 siege engines firing at once. The column is now raining fragments, small stones at first, white and porous, drifting like hail. You hold one in your palm. It is light as pumice from the baths, warm to the touch, gritty in your fingers. Others begin to fall, bouncing off rooftops, rattling on the paving stones. The first shouts of alarm rise above the market noise. The sky, so blue only moments ago, begins to pale under the shadow of the ash plume. It spreads wide at the top like a pine tree's canopy, flattening as if pressed by invisible hands. The sunlight takes on a strange color, a muted coppery glow that makes the skin of your arms look bruised. You feel the hairs rise along the back of your neck. Some people run for the city gates almost immediately. You watch a family, mother clutching a child to her chest, father dragging another by the arm, push through the growing crowd, heading toward the road to Pompeii. Others stay rooted where they are, staring upward as though the sight will somehow explain itself. An older man mutters about an eruption, though the word feels strange in your ears. You have heard of mountains that spit fire in far-off lands, but Vesuvius has never done such a thing in living memory. The stones fall thicker now, some large enough to crack roof tiles when they hit. You pull your cloak over your head and step under an awning, though the flimsy covering is no protection from what you can already tell is coming. The air tastes different, dry and bitter, like the smell from a hearth, swept clean but magnified 100-fold. Every breath scratches the back of your throat. You cough, and the sound is lost in the rising clamor of hooves, shouts, and stone on stone. Somewhere to your left, a priest emerges from a doorway, eyes fixed on the mountain, mouth moving in rapid prayer. Two young men run past carrying sacks slung over their shoulders, faces covered with strips of cloth. A woman in the doorway opposite yours calls to her neighbor, asking if it is safe to stay. The neighbor shakes her head but does not move from her step. No one seems certain which is more dangerous, to leave, risking the open road, or to stay and trust the city's walls. You step into the street again, drawn by the need to see more, to understand. The view down the long, straight stretch of road toward the Forum shows a city in transition. The early confusion is dissolving into something sharper, more desperate. Merchants are pulling in their stalls, dropping baskets of figs, bolts of cloth, and amphorae of oil in their haste. A cart piled with furniture lurches past, its driver striking the donkey to keep it moving despite the stones that now litter the path. The donkey's flanks are white with dust, its ears flat with fear. Looking up, the column is larger still, its base hidden by the thickening haze that swirls at street level. The stones falling now are larger, too, chunks the size of your fist, light but fast, bouncing and skittering dangerously when they strike the ground. The sound is constant, a steady hail that drowns out softer noises. Every so often there is a sharper crack as a roof beam snaps or a clay jar shatters. Somewhere nearby, a child cries out in pain, the sound briefly piercing the din before it is swallowed again. The air darkens further, not with the clean shadow of a passing cloud, but with the filthy, choking gloom of ash. You can no longer see the mountain slopes, only the roiling column and the gray-black mass that spreads beneath it. It is as if the sky itself has lowered, pressing down on the city. A fine dust begins to settle over everything, your hair, your skin, the street, soft at first, but quickly thickening. Each footstep now leaves a shallow print in the pale coating. Your mind races. If you leave now, you might reach the coast, though the road will be clogged with others who have had the same thought. If you stay, perhaps the eruption will pass. People say such events can end as suddenly as they begin. And yet you remember the earthquake years ago, how the walls shook and split, how days later aftershocks still rattled the city. This feels different, larger, more deliberate, as though the earth itself has decided to shrug you off. Another loud report from the mountain. This one, sharper, more violent, draws gasps from those nearby. Someone shouts that the gods are angry. Another calls it the wrath of Vulcan, the smith of fire. Religious explanations pass between frightened mouths, each an attempt to make sense of the incomprehensible. You hear the names of half the pantheon before you have taken 3 more steps. The priest you saw earlier has joined with others in the street, their voices raised in chant, hands lifted toward the darkening sky. The ash now falls like a fine snow, coating your shoulders, clinging to your lashes. It is warm, not cold, and it carries the metallic tang of stone ground into dust. The world takes on a muffled quality, as though you are hearing it from a distance, everything softened by the constant whisper of ash settling. The only sharp sounds are the impacts of larger stones and the occasional crash of something giving way under their weight. You pass a man struggling to secure the shutters of his shop against the onslaught. He is coughing violently, his hands gray to the elbows from the dust. He does not look at you. A young girl stumbles past, her hair turned almost white by the ash, clutching a doll whose painted features are already half obscured. You glance back and see her mother hurrying to catch up, pulling her into the crook of her arm. The light fades further still. It is only the middle of the day, but already it feels like dusk. The strange, coppery hue from earlier is gone, replaced by a sullen gray that makes it hard to judge distance. Figures become shapes in the haze, their outlines blurred by the drifting ash. The air grows hotter, as though the mountain is exhaling directly upon you. Sweat mingles with dust on your skin, turning it to mud. By now, the streets are half empty. Those who have decided to leave are already beyond the gates, their footsteps lost in the noise of the falling debris. Those who remain are shuttered indoors, voices low behind closed doors, hoping walls and roofs will protect them. You find yourself in the company of a handful of others moving quickly, but without any real direction, as if movement itself might hold the danger at bay. You catch sight of the sea at the end of one street, a narrow strip of gray-green under the churning sky. It should be reassuring, but it is not. Even the water seems strange, restless in its stillness, the small fishing boats rocking uneasily, despite the absence of wind. Somewhere, perhaps on the road to Herculaneum, others will be pushing toward the shore, hoping for passage away from the chaos. You wonder if there is still time for you to join them. Another deep rumble rolls through the ground, long and low, making the loose stones at your feet dance. You steady yourself against a wall and look up. The column above the mountain has begun to lean, pushed by unseen winds high in the atmosphere, so that its thick canopy now spreads toward the city. The light dims again. This time, it does not return. You draw a cloth across your mouth and nose as you have seen others do, but the air is already inside you, dry, gritty, catching in your chest. Breathing is an effort. You cough, and the taste of stone fills your mouth. Somewhere in the haze ahead, a voice shouts a warning, though you cannot make out the words. You are not sure if the warning is for you or for all of Pompeii. The day that began with sunlight on the rooftops has turned to shadow and ash. Somewhere above, the mountain still roars, its voice unbroken, shaking the ground beneath your feet. Whatever happens next, you understand now that the choice between staying and going is no longer yours alone. The city itself is caught in something vast, something that will not be stopped. The fall of Pompeii begins to change from an unsettling nuisance into a force that shapes every movement, every breath, every thought. It comes steadily at first, bouncing off roof tiles, clattering against shutters, striking shoulders and backs with a light, almost harmless tap. But each moment brings more, faster, larger. What once rolled harmlessly down the street now strikes with enough force to bruise. The sound is relentless, a constant rattling mixed with sharper cracks when tiles break or walls are struck. Somewhere behind you, a dog howls and is suddenly cut off, the noise swallowed by the thick, whispering hiss of debris from above. The ground is no longer bare stone. A soft, pale blanket now covers the street, crunching underfoot. It is already ankle-deep in places, drifting like sand against the walls, filling the gaps between stepping stones, softening the edges of the world you knew. It is deceptively light, so that you can still push through it with little resistance, but you can feel the drag already. You know instinctively that if it rises much further, movement will slow to a crawl. The air is worse. Every breath draws more dust into your mouth and nose. The cloth you tied around your face is damp now, with sweat and spittle, but it does little to filter the grit. It coats your teeth, scratches your throat, stings your eyes. Tears spill freely, partly from the irritation, partly from the acrid smoke that now mingles with the pumice. You try to blink the sting away, but your lashes are clumped together with gray. Somewhere ahead, a man is dragging a mule, the animal panicked and refusing to move. It plants its hooves and jerks its head violently, snorting plumes of gray dust into the thick air. The man shouts hoarsely, a sound barely distinguishable from the rest of the chaos. You pass them, keeping close to the walls for what little shelter they provide, though the stones are warm to the touch now, radiating heat from the sky above. The first roof collapse comes almost without warning. A groan of timber is followed by a violent crash as tiles, beams, and pumice explode into the street in a cloud of dust. The sudden movement is like a wave through the small crowd nearby. Shouts, the scrape of feet trying to retreat through the deepening drifts. Two men rush forward, calling into the rubble, but no answer comes. You look away. There is no time to linger, no space to stop in the narrow street. Shutters bang open as someone inside shouts to those passing, urging them to take shelter within. A few obey, ducking quickly into the gloom. You hesitate, then keep moving. The weight on roofs is growing with every passing minute. A building might shield you from the falling stones, but if it fails, the collapse will be instant and final. Outside, at least, you can see what is coming. It is growing darker, though the hour cannot yet be late. The ash overhead blots out more of the sun with every breath you take. Shadows lengthen strangely, thrown at sharp angles by the fading, coppery light. Figures move as silhouettes now, outlines blurred by drifting haze. Somewhere close, someone is coughing so violently they cannot speak, the sound harsh and wet. A group pushes past you, moving fast toward the main road that leads to the Nola Gate. They are wrapped in cloaks, carrying what few possessions they can, a bundle of clothes, a small bronze cooking pot, a loaf of bread. The child in the group is crying openly, the sound oddly muffled in the heavy air. One of the adults clutches a strip of cloth over the child's mouth and nose, guiding them along. You step aside to let them pass, your feet sinking deeper into the soft layer at your ankles. Another crash, this one farther away but larger, echoes across the rooftops. The noise rolls over the city, met by another and another in quick succession. The roofs are failing under the weight. You imagine the upper floors of shops collapsing into the streets, their stored goods buried in a mix of timber and ash. The thought spurs you forward faster, even as the pumice rises to your calves. Every surface is coated now. Statues stand half-buried in pale mounds, their features dulled and softened. Steps disappear into slow-moving drifts. Market stalls are nothing more than shapeless humps beneath the weight. The once bright frescoes on walls are dulled by a uniform gray that clings to paint and plaster alike. It is as though the city is being erased even as you move through it, detail by detail. The sound of voices is changing. Fewer people call out to each other now. Many move in grim silence, heads bent, conserving breath. The coughing is constant, punctuated only by the occasional sharp cry when someone loses their footing or is struck by a heavier stone. You keep your head down, eyes narrowed to slits, watching each step as you push forward through the drifts. The heat is building. The air no longer just tastes of stone and smoke. It feels heavier, hotter, as if you are breathing air from an oven. Sweat runs freely down your back and arms, sticking your tunic to your skin. It makes the ash cling more tightly to you, until your arms are streaked with pale gray mud. At a crossroads, a man grabs your arm. His face is nearly unrecognizable under a mask of dust, his eyes red-rimmed and wild. He shouts something, you think it's a warning about the road ahead, but the words are half lost in the hiss and crash all around. He gestures urgently toward another street, and when you hesitate, he pushes you in that direction before disappearing back the way he came. You follow his advice, though you have no idea whether it will lead to safety or simply another dead end. The new street is narrower, more sheltered, but the drifts here are deeper. You wade through them with effort, lifting your knees high with each step. The buildings close in above you, their upper floors leaning slightly inward, as though bowing to the weight above. A small group huddles in a doorway, the oldest among them leaning on a staff. Their faces are turned upward, eyes following the strange, swirling shadows overhead. You do not stop. A gust of wind comes suddenly, rare in this still air, and it brings with it a denser cloud of ash. You are blind for a moment, coughing hard, eyes streaming. The world contracts to the sound of your own breath rasping in your ears, the grit grinding against your teeth. You press yourself against the wall until the worst of it passes, then push on again, moving more by instinct than sight. You think of the homes you passed earlier, the shops you have seen every day for years. You imagine their interiors now filling with the same pale drifts that choke the streets, settling over tables, beds, shrines. The weight will crush the roof beams, then the upper floors, until all is flattened under the same soft but deadly layer. The thought is both distant and immediate. Part of you still cannot believe this is happening, even as you feel it underfoot. The air grows quieter for a brief moment, as though the fall has slowed, but it is only an illusion. The stones still come, but your ears have adapted to the constant noise, filtering it into something like silence. It is broken again by a sudden, violent crash nearby. A shop front collapses outward, spilling a cascade of wood, tiles, and pumice into the street. You stumble back just in time to avoid the edge of the debris, the impact sending up a cloud that makes you gag. It is difficult now to judge how far you have come or how much time has passed. The light has changed again, dimming further, into a murky twilight. Shadows stretch unnaturally long in the shifting glow. You can no longer see the column above the mountain. The haze is too thick, the sky too close. All direction comes from the streets themselves, their familiar turns and slopes guiding you by memory alone. You pass a small shrine set into the wall, its painted figures obscured by ash but still faintly visible. Someone has placed a fresh offering there, perhaps this morning, perhaps only an hour ago, a few grapes and a coin. Both are already half buried. You hesitate for the briefest moment, then move on, not daring to linger in the narrowing gap between falling debris and rising drifts. The weight on the roofs is a constant, invisible threat now. You can hear the groaning of beams above you, the creak of tiles shifting under strain. Occasionally there is a sharp crack, a warning that somewhere another collapse is moments away. You keep your ears open for it, ready to move at any sign, though you know you could not outrun a falling wall in these conditions. The drifts are nearly to your knees now. Each step is a labor, each breath a conscious act. You are dimly aware that this is only the beginning, that the mountain may have more to give than just ash and stone. But the human mind clings to the immediate, the next corner, the next breath, the next step forward through the choking gray. The city feels smaller now, closed in by its own walls, its familiar streets turn to channels of suffocating dust. The air presses down as much as the ash rises up. Somewhere in the distance, you hear the muffled crash of another collapse, followed by a scream that cuts off abruptly. You do not look toward the sound. You keep moving, one slow, dragging step after another, as the city of Pompeii sinks beneath the steady, deadly rain. The sun should still be high, but the light is gone. The world has turned to a dim and shifting twilight, the kind of half-light you might expect at the end of a storm, yet heavier, more suffocating. You can no longer tell the difference between day and night by the sky. Only the memory of the morning reminds you that this is still the same day. The air has thickened to a pale gray fog, every shape in the street softened at the edges until nothing has a clear outline. Figures move like shadows through it, appearing and vanishing with each step. The ash is waist-deep in some places now, especially in the narrow lanes, where the wind cannot disperse it. Moving through it requires lifting each leg high, wading as though through snow, but the snow here is warm and dry and shifting constantly beneath your feet. The effort burns your thighs and leaves you breathless. Each exhale sends a small cloud up from your own body, a reminder that you are as much a part of this choking air as it is of you. The streets are quieter than they were an hour ago. The voices have thinned, the calls and shouts that filled the air earlier now replaced by the occasional hoarse cough or short cry. You hear doors slam shut and bolts drawn across them, the desperate sounds of those who have decided to face this behind walls. It is hard to tell whether that is wisdom or a mistake. Roofs continue to groan and splinter under the weight above. Every so often there is a muffled final crash, and a pale plume of dust rises silently into the already heavy haze. You pass a group gathered outside what must be one of the sturdier houses. The door is open, and inside you can see the flicker of lamplight, a warm, golden glow against the dull ash. A woman is urging people to come inside, promising they can shelter together until the fall stops. Some step through without hesitation, heads low. Others shake their heads, muttering about being trapped if the house collapses. You keep walking, unable to decide quickly enough, unwilling to commit to staying still when every part of you is urging forward motion. The city feels unrecognizable now. The neat straight lines of the streets are buried under undulating drifts. Corners and steps are gone, swallowed by the constant rain. Doors are half hidden behind small hills of pumice, windows darkened by the settling dust. It is as though Pompeii is already turning to stone around you, freezing in place even before it dies. The amphitheater, the forum, the grand villas, they may still stand, but you can no longer imagine reaching them through this suffocating maze. Somewhere to your left, a shout breaks through the dull quiet. You turn to see a man trying to haul an elderly woman through the ash, her legs barely lifting above the surface. Two others join him, each taking an arm, and together they force a slow path toward one of the city gates. You want to believe they will make it, but already their forms are half lost in the haze, swallowed by the pale gray curtain. The heat is increasing, not enough to burn, but enough to feel unnatural, as though the very air is moving toward fever. It presses down from above and rises from the ground, surrounding you in a heat that makes the skin crawl. The smell is worse too, not just the mineral bite of stone and dust, but something darker, sharper, as though the earth itself was scorched. You pass another street where the ash is piled high against the walls. A door swings loosely on one hinge, banging softly in the warm wind that moves occasionally through the city. Behind it, the room is already knee-deep in pumice, the furniture half buried. A bronze oil lamp lies on its side in the drift, cold and dark. You step away quickly, uneasy at seeing the inside of a life abandoned so completely. It is harder to keep a sense of direction. The landmarks are gone, hidden under the same uniform gray. The few torches that flicker in doorways or in the hands of fleeing families cast only weak circles of light, their flames fighting for air. You choose each street by memory and instinct, trying to recall where the wider roads lie, where the drifts might be less deep. Occasionally, you pass others moving against you, heading back toward the heart of the city. They do not speak, only keep their heads down, wrapped in cloaks or strips of cloth, their outlines ghostly in the shifting ash. One man carries a bundle to his chest, and only when you pass close do you realize it is a child, limp and still. You do not look back. A sudden gust sends the ash swirling again, thickening until you can barely see your own hands. You stop, pressing the cloth tighter over your mouth, coughing into the hot grit. It gets into your ears, your hair, down your collar, an intrusion you cannot escape. The sound of it is constant, the hiss and patter against the ground, the faint sliding of it against walls as it shifts and settles. Somewhere ahead there is the sound of many voices at once, not shouts, but chanting. You come upon them suddenly, a cluster of people kneeling in the street around a small household altar. The figures on the shrine are dusted over, but still visible. Venus, Mercury, a tiny carved Jupiter. The priest at their head has his hands raised to the sky, his voice carrying in the low, rhythmic tones of prayer. They are asking for mercy, for deliverance. A few sob as they speak. Others are silent, their faces hidden in their hands. You watch for a moment, torn between joining and moving on. Then a fresh fall of heavier stones clatters down, and you step away, not wanting to be caught in the open should a wall give way nearby. The noise of collapsing buildings grows more frequent. It is no longer a rare, distant sound, but one that punctuates every few minutes, sometimes near enough to send tremors through the street beneath your feet. You wonder how many are still inside their homes, waiting for the weight to crush them. The thought drives you faster, though each step feels like dragging your body through water. The gates must be close now. You imagine the road beyond, choked with the same pale drifts, but at least open to the air, away from the narrow streets where the ash funnels down like a river. You imagine the coast, the boats that might still be waiting. But you have heard others say that the sea has drawn back, that the harbor is strange and shallow, the boats grounded. The image is unsettling, and you push it away, one danger at a time. A sharp cry to your right pulls your head around. A man has fallen, his leg twisted unnaturally beneath him. Another tries to lift him, but the ash makes every movement slow, and the injured man's face is a mask of pain and panic. You take a step toward them before stopping yourself. You cannot help them and keep moving. The knowledge burns in you as you turn back to your path, the cry of pain following you until it is swallowed by the hiss of falling stone. The heat seems to pulse now, waves of it rolling through the air as though the mountain is breathing harder. You can feel it on your face, on your hands, seeping through your clothes. The cloth over your mouth is hot and damp, and breathing through it feels like drawing air from a kettle. The coughing comes more frequently, the deep kind that racks your ribs and leaves you lightheaded. Then, through the haze, you see a glow ahead, not the golden flicker of lamplight, but a dull, red-orange smolder on the horizon above the rooftops. The sight sends a fresh jolt of fear through you. It is not just ash and stone. There is fire in this too, somewhere beyond sight, and it is moving. You do not know how fast, but the thought of it reaching these streets drives you to force your legs higher, push harder against the drag of the drifts. The figures around you have the same urgency now. No one speaks. All you can hear are the sounds of movement, labored breathing, the crunch and slide of ash underfoot. You pass one last narrow street and emerge onto a wider road. The drift slightly less deep here, but the space more open to the sky and to the constant deadly rain. You glance once more toward the mountain, but it is gone, hidden entirely in the roiling dark. The world feels smaller now, as though the ash has closed in on all sides. You move forward because there is nothing else to do, the thought of stopping more frightening than anything ahead. Each breath, each step is a battle against the weight above and below, against the heat and the grit and the constant press of the unseen danger that creeps closer with every passing moment. Pompeii is still around you, but it is no longer the city you knew. It is a shadow of itself, fading by the heartbeat, waiting for the next blow that will drive it further into silence. You are moving through the final hours of a place that has no idea how final they truly are. And you, like the others still stumbling forward through the suffocating dark, can only hope that there is still a way out before the mountain gives you no choice at all. The darkness is complete now, a darkness that does not belong to night, but to something heavier, more final. You can no longer see the shapes of the buildings unless you are close enough to touch them. The air is so choked with ash that even the faint glow from the oil lamps some people carry is smothered after only a few paces. The world has shrunk to the small circle you can sense immediately around you, the scrape of your own feet, the weight of the ash pulling at your legs, the sound of your breath rasping through cloth. Everything beyond that is swallowed by a restless, suffocating void. The fall from above has changed again. It is no longer only the steady patter of pumice, but something heavier, sharper, mixed with sudden bursts of noise that feel wrong. There is a deep rumble under your feet, like the heartbeat of the earth itself, pulsing in slow, uneven waves. You know without understanding how the mountain is shifting into another phase, something more violent than before. Your skin prickles with the instinct that whatever is coming will not be survivable if you are caught in the open. You push forward, each step harder than the last. The ash is above your knees now in the deeper drifts, and every stride requires you to wrench your legs free, sending small cascades tumbling behind you. Breathing is harder, the air feels hot enough to scald, and each inhale draws in fine grit that scratches down your throat and into your chest. You try to keep the cloth over your mouth, but it is soaked through, offering little more than a momentary delay before the ash finds its way inside again. Somewhere behind you, voices shout in panic, short, sharp cries that grow louder and closer. You turn just enough to see shadows moving fast in the gloom, their limbs jerking with the frantic effort of running. Then you hear it, a sound unlike anything else so far, a deep, roaring rush, as though the sea itself is bearing down on the city, but without the slap of water. It is a wind, but not a natural one. The heat in it strikes your back even before the noise has fully reached you. You have no time to think. Instinct screams at you to get low, to get behind something, anything. You lurch toward the nearest building, its doorway half blocked by a mound of ash. You claw at the drift with your hands, dragging yourself over and inside. The air is marginally cooler here, but the heat outside is still pressing in, and the roar is growing. It is joined by a shriek, high, metallic, as though the air is being torn apart. The surge arrives not as a single wall, but as a boiling cloud of ash, gas, and rock fragments, moving faster than any human could run. It slams into the street outside with a force that makes the walls shudder around you. The air inside the doorway is snatched away, replaced by something heavier, hotter. You cover your head and curl in on yourself, trying to make your body as small as possible. The sound is deafening, a combination of rushing wind, cracking stone, and the screams of those caught in the open, cut short one by one until the roar is the only thing left. It passes quickly, but not quickly enough. The heat has intensified, and the ash in the air is thicker, heavier. You force yourself to your knees, coughing so hard you nearly vomit. The doorway is almost entirely blocked now, the drift higher than before, and still warm to the touch. You dig at it with your hands, not to get out immediately, but to make sure you can, if you must. Each handful crumbles like coarse sand, but the mound does not shrink easily. Outside, the silence after the surge is strange, fragile. There are no more collapsing roofs nearby, no shouts, no movement, only the faint hiss of settling particles. You step cautiously into the street, but it is unrecognizable. The surge has scoured the upper layer of ash, flattening it in places, piling it higher in others. Some walls are scorched, blackened in streaks. The bodies of those who did not make it inside are half buried already, their outlines soft and still. You try not to look too closely. The air is hotter than before, and the darkness is thicker. It feels as though you are deep underground, where no sunlight can ever reach. You move quickly now, though your body protests. Your legs ache from the constant lifting through the ash. Your lungs burn. Your throat is raw. But the memory of that rushing roar pushes you on. You know there will be more. As you turn into another street, you see a faint light ahead, not the warm flicker of a lamp, but a pale, steady glow. For a moment, you think it might be moonlight breaking through, but the sky is sealed. It takes another few steps to realize the glow is from the ash itself, reflecting some distant fire high in the column above. It gives just enough illumination to see the jagged remains of the buildings, the uneven mounds between them. You are not alone here. A small group huddles on the lee of a wall, their bodies pressed close together. One of them waves you over, their face unrecognizable beneath the ash, but their voice hoarse and urgent. You join them, crouching low. They tell you in broken bursts of speech that the first surge hit the northern side of the city hardest, that more will come, each worse than the last. They are waiting for a lull to move again, but no one knows how long that will be. You glance upward, though there is nothing to see but the shifting black. The ground trembles again, not the long, slow pulse from earlier, but a quick, sharp jolt. The others flinch, and you realize how close everything feels to breaking entirely. Somewhere above, the mountain is still erupting with the same fury, and here in the city, you are simply waiting for the next wave. It comes sooner than you expect. This time, the sound begins as a low growl, deep and steady, building faster than before. The group scrambles to its feet, some shouting to move, others to stay. You choose to move, forcing your body through the ash as quickly as you can, legs burning, lungs screaming for air. The roar swells, the heat behind you growing in seconds. You look over your shoulder once and see nothing but the advancing darkness, boiling and shifting like a living thing. There is no shelter close enough. You throw yourself against a low wall, curling behind it, and press your face into the crook of your arm. The surge strikes with a blast of heat so intense you can feel the hairs on your neck crisp. The pressure forces ash into your ears, your mouth, your nose. You can do nothing but hold on, muscles locked, until the roar passes again. When you finally lift your head, the world has shrunk even further. The ash is higher, almost to your waist in places. The wall you hid behind is partly buried now, its top rim level with your chest. The air is a constant sear in your lungs, each breath a battle. You cannot tell how much time has passed or how many more surges will come. You start moving again, slower now, your strength ebbing. The streets are littered with shapes that once were people, some still clutching the belongings they tried to save. The details of their faces are gone, masked by ash, frozen mid-stride or mid-reach. They are as much a part of the city now as the stones underfoot. You step around them, eyes fixed ahead. At some point, the ground begins to slope slightly, and you realize you are heading toward the southern edge of the city. If you can reach the gate, perhaps the road will lead you far enough from the mountain to escape the worst of the surges. But the heat is stronger here, and the air tastes of sulfur and something acrid, something that stings the inside of your mouth. You force yourself to keep going, even as your body protests. Your legs shake with each step. Your arms ache from pushing aside the drifts. Your chest feels tight, the coughs now deep and wet. Every sound is muffled except the faint, constant hiss of ash settling and the distant, low rumble from the mountain. You know it will come again, and you do not know if you will be ready when it does. Pompeii is no longer a city in any way you understand. It is a gray, shifting landscape of mounds and hollows, of broken walls and buried streets. The life it held has been swallowed, smothered, and the mountain has not yet finished. You are moving through the closing moments of its existence, each breath a gamble, each step a choice to keep going, even when there may be nowhere left to go. And somewhere behind you, the roar begins to rise again. The roar behind you builds faster this time, as if the mountain itself has grown impatient. There is no warning gap between the first low growl and the full scream of the oncoming surge, only the sudden, crushing certainty that it is already too close. You have only seconds to act. The air pushes against your back, hot and fast, shoving you forward as though urging you to run, but running is impossible now. The ash is high enough to catch your knees in each step, and your legs are weak from hours of fighting through it. You look frantically for shelter. The buildings here are mostly low, their upper floors long collapsed under the weight of the fall. Walls lean at dangerous angles, the outlines of windows choked with drifting pumice. Ahead, you see a narrow gap between two structures, half blocked by debris. It is small enough to trap heat, to suffocate you if the surge lingers, but there is nowhere else. You force yourself into it, stumbling over the mound that bars the way, scraping your shins against rough stone. The space is dark and close, the air already thick with dust. You crouch low, pressing yourself into the corner where the wall meets the ground. You wrap your arms over your head, curl your body inward, and wait. The sound grows until it fills everything, not just your ears, but your bones, the ground under you, the air in your lungs. Then the heat arrives. It comes like an opening furnace, a wave that is not just hot but heavy, pressing against you from every direction at once. Your skin prickles and tightens, the hairs on your arms curling in the blast. The ash it carries is fine enough to seep through every gap in your clothing, filling the space between your skin and your tunic. You hold your breath as long as you can, but the air is stolen from you, replaced by something dense and unbreathable. When you finally gasp, it scorches your throat, the inside of your nose, the very lining of your chest. The noise is unbearable, a rushing, boiling howl that drowns every other thought. It is like being trapped inside the lungs of some colossal beast, every exhalation an attempt to crush you flat. You try to make yourself smaller, tighter, as if that will make you harder to find, but the heat finds you anyway, searing every inch of exposed skin. When the surge passes, it is sudden, as though the air has been sucked away. You are left in silence so complete it is almost worse. Your ears ring from the loss of the roar, your breathing is ragged, and your limbs feel leaden. You lift your head slowly, coughing out clumps of ash that feel as though they have lodged deep inside you. The world outside your small refuge has changed again. The street is unrecognizable, smoothed into new shapes by the force of the wind and the weight of fresh ash. The drifts are higher than before, the tops still faintly steaming. Any tracks you might have left are gone. Figures that once moved in the distance are buried completely now, their forms lost beneath the even surface. The air is hotter, and the darkness has thickened into something that feels almost solid. You know there will be more. The pauses between surges are growing shorter, the violence of each wave greater. You cannot stay in one place. The ash will bury you, and the heat will finish what the air cannot. Your only hope is to keep moving toward the edge of the city, to find a path that is not yet sealed. Your legs shake as you stand, and each step is harder than the last. The ash is waist-deep now in places, and in others it has formed crusted ridges that crumble under your weight. You wade through it, using your arms to push against the heavier drifts, your breath loud in your own ears. Every movement stirs up fresh clouds, and your vision is limited to the arm's length in front of you. Somewhere to your left, a faint noise cuts through the muffled air, the uneven scrape of someone else moving. You turn and make out a figure struggling in the ash, bent forward, their movements desperate. You start toward them, but before you can reach them, another low rumble rolls through the ground. Both of you freeze. The sound swells in seconds, the heat brushing against your cheek before you have even spotted the oncoming cloud. This time, there is no time to hide. You drop to your knees, pull your tunic up over your face, and press your body into the ash as the surge hits. It slams into you with the force of a giant's hand, knocking you sideways and filling your mouth with grit. The heat sears through the thin fabric over your head, the air unbreathable for long moments. You hold on, clenching your fists in the ash, waiting for the violence to pass. When you lift your head again, the other figure is gone. Whether buried or moved on, you cannot tell. The ash where they stood is smooth now, untouched by any mark. You feel an ache in your chest that is more than just the effort of breathing. You do not have the strength to think about it for long. Your body demands movement. The city is silent apart from the faint hiss of settling ash. Even the distant rumble of the mountain seems muted, as though it is drawing breath for the next onslaught. You push forward again, leaning into each step, your eyes fixed on the faintest hint of an opening ahead, the outline of a gate half buried but still passable. It feels impossibly far, the ash sucking at your legs, but you force yourself toward it, measuring the distance and the space between breaths. You pass what remains of a wall, its plaster cracked and flaking, the bright paint beneath dulled to gray. The shapes of figures and patterns are still just visible, frozen mid-scene in a life that no longer exists. You do not stop to look. Another tremor ripples underfoot. It is shorter this time, sharper, followed by a shift in the air that you recognize instantly. The next surge is coming. You are too close to the open space ahead to turn back now, but too far to reach it before the cloud arrives. Panic sharpens your movements, and you push harder, your legs burning as the ash resists. The roar rises behind you, and the heat blooms against your back. You glance over your shoulder and see the faint, roiling edge of the cloud, darker than the air around it, moving fast. There is nothing to do but keep going. Your lungs scream for air, your vision narrows to the strip of ash in front of you, and you run in the only way the ash will allow, a desperate, high-stepping lurch that feels both too slow and impossibly hard. The gate is closer now, the arch above it still faintly visible in the gloom. You throw yourself toward it, feeling the surge at your heels, the heat nipping at your back. The space beneath the arch is half blocked by debris, but you claw at it with your hands, dragging yourself through just as the blast overtakes the street behind you. The sound is everywhere at once, filling the narrow space under the gate with a deafening roar. The ash slams into you from behind, driving you forward until you collapse into the drift on the other side. The heat is unbearable for long moments, pressing down until your limbs feel weak and useless. Then, just as suddenly, it begins to fade. You lie still for a moment, your chest heaving, your ears ringing. The air here is no cleaner, no cooler, but the open space feels different. You have made it to the edge of the city. Beyond this point, the ground slopes gently away, the outlines of the road barely visible beneath the ash. Whether it leads to safety or only to another trap, you cannot yet tell. You push yourself upright, swaying on unsteady legs. Behind you, Pompeii is a shadow, the shapes of buildings smoothed away, the streets buried, the life that filled them gone. The mountain still growls above, and you know it will send more surges before the day is done. You turn toward the road, every step an act of will. every breath a reminder that you are still among the living, for now. The road beyond the gate is little more than a memory now, a buried line beneath an endless drift of pale gray ash. You know it is there only because your feet find the slope, the faint suggestion of a path leading away from the city. Each step forward is slow, your legs sinking almost to the thigh in places. The world is as silent as the grave, except for the low, constant murmur from the mountain, a sound so deep it seems to live in the bones rather than the ears. You glance back, though there is nothing to see but the shifting gloom. Pompeii is gone from sight, smothered under its own burial shroud. The shapes of walls, the peaks of rooftops, the market stalls and fountains, all erased, hidden under a landscape that looks as if snow has fallen from a burning sky. The knowledge that you walked those streets only hours ago feels impossible, as if that life belonged to someone else entirely. The heat is not lessened here. It rolls off the ground in waves, seeping through the soles of your sandals, tightening the skin on your legs. The air is thick, tasting of sulfur, and something bitter that makes your tongue feel dry and coated. You try to keep the cloth over your mouth, but it has grown heavy with moisture and ash, making each breath an effort. Your lungs ache, your throat is raw, and every swallow feels like scraping glass. You are not alone. A few figures move ahead of you on the road, silhouettes against the dim, ashen light. They walk slowly, heads bent, their outlines softened by the drifting haze. You do not call out. Voices carry strangely in this muffled world, and besides, you have no strength for conversation. It is enough to know that others have made it this far. The road rises slightly, and with it the wind strengthens, carrying a fresh gust of ash that stings your eyes. You lift an arm to shield your face, squinting into the direction you are heading. Somewhere beyond this ridge, the land should slope down toward the countryside, vineyards, farmsteads, and the road that leads toward the sea. But you have heard enough in the streets to know the sea is no refuge now. Those who fled toward it spoke of the water retreating, the shoreline stretching out unnaturally far, the boats stranded in mud. You cannot picture what would cause such a thing, but you know instinctively it is tied to the violence of the mountain. A tremor ripples through the ground beneath your feet. It is sharper than before, as though the earth is splintering somewhere deep below. The figures ahead pause, glancing back, their movements taut with the same fear tightening your chest. The tremor passes quickly, but the silence that follows is worse. The air feels charged, as though the world is holding its breath. Then you hear it, the sound that has come to mean death. A low, growing roar, building faster than it has before. You do not need to turn to know what it is. The others ahead begin to move more quickly, pushing through the ash with sudden desperation. You follow, your legs straining, the muscles trembling with the effort. The roar swells behind you, the heat chasing its sound. The ridge ahead seems impossibly far. You throw your weight forward with each step, fighting the drag of the ash, your chest burning with the effort. The wind changes, sucking at your back as though the surge is drawing the air toward itself. Then, before you can reach the crest, it hits. The pyroclastic flow slams into the slope with a force that knocks you forward onto your hands and knees. The heat is instant and all-consuming, burning against your skin through the thin fabric of your clothes. You press your face into the ash, the grit grinding into your mouth and eyes. The sound is deafening, a living thing that seems determined to crush everything beneath it. You cannot move. You can only hold on, body curled tight, until the violence begins to ebb. When it passes, you lift your head slowly, gasping through the ash that clings to your lips and teeth. The others ahead are gone, swallowed entirely. The ridge is closer now, but it feels like an unclimbable wall, the slope loose and treacherous beneath your feet. You begin to crawl upward, using your hands to pull yourself forward when your legs falter. The ash is hot enough to sting through your palms, but you ignore it. Reaching the top feels like breaking the surface of deep water after too long below. Beyond it, the land does indeed slope downward, though it is a wasteland now, the fields and orchards buried, the lines of the roads erased. In the far distance, a faint red glow pulses in the haze, marking the heart of the eruption. You can see how the surges have rolled outward from it, sweeping across the countryside as easily as they have the city. You start down the slope, but the descent is no easier than the climb. The ash shifts under you, sending you sliding in small bursts, filling your sandals, scraping your ankles raw. You pass the blackened remains of what might once have been a tree, its trunk twisted and brittle. Beyond it, the shape of a cart lies half buried, the outline of its wheels just visible above the drift. There is no sign of the animal that once pulled it. Another tremor shakes the ground, and you stumble, catching yourself on your hands. The roar begins again, and this time it is not behind you, but to your right, rolling in across the open land. You turn and see the cloud surging over the fields, faster than a man can sprint. It moves with the weight and speed of a storm, boiling with heat and fragments of rock. There is no cover here, nothing to hide behind. You run anyway. Your body moves without thought, driven by the same instinct that has kept you alive this long. The ash resists, your legs heavy, your lungs aflame, but you do not stop. The cloud is gaining, its heat brushing against your side. The sound fills the world. You trip once, go down hard, and scramble up again without looking back. Ahead, a low mound rises from the drift, the remnants of a vineyard wall, perhaps its stones still holding against the weight above. You throw yourself behind it, curling into the smallest space you can make. The surge strikes seconds later, slamming into the far side of the wall, sending a spray of ash over you. The heat pushes through, making your skin feel tight and dry, but the wall holds. You stay there long after the roar has faded, afraid to move in case the next one is already on its way. When you finally emerge, the world is quieter still. The haze is thicker, the light dimmer, and the air hotter than ever. You can see no movement anywhere, no figures ahead, no signs of life at all. The realization settles over you slowly, as heavy as the ash itself. You might be the last moving thing in this place. You start walking again, though you no longer know toward what. The mountain still grumbles behind you, and you know it has more to give. The land stretches endlessly ahead, pale and dead. You place one foot in front of the other, because stopping feels too much like giving up. The ash pulls at you, the heat presses down, and the silence grows until it feels like the whole world has already ended. When the final surge comes, there is no warning. No distant roar, no rising heat, only the sudden rush of air, the sting of grit in your eyes, and then the crushing weight of the cloud. It fills your mouth, your nose, your lungs in an instant. You try to breathe, but there is nothing left to breathe. The heat wraps around you, heavy and absolute. You think of the streets that morning, the voices, the sunlight on the walls. Then even thought is gone, and Pompeii, the city, its people, its noise and color, is silent forever.